another one.
Do you write SQL as a QA engineer? And it says, I mean, sometimes it's convenient to change the state of the app by changing the database directly, but not every team or the responsible developer lets you do it. I want to know how many of you here are allowed to do it. So that is a good question. I would say that depending on the company that I've been in and the type of work that we do, that is where it it depends on how much SQL involvement that I've had, right? Um, when I was directly involved in building an application, we were building it from the ground up. I was automating testing the database, right? So making sure that the schema was correct, making sure that what you would submit to the API would be entered into the database correctly, and what you would retrieve in the API would also retrieve from the database correctly. And then there were like queries that I would write and stuff like that. So it just depends on the level of involvement that you have. So like you said, the not every team or the responsible developer might let you do it. I think what happens in this case is I don't know what level of QA engineer that you are or QA tester that you are, but it is not up to the developers to dictate how you are going to test, right? But the problem also is in your question, you're talking about convenience. You know, convenience to change the state of an app by changing the database directly. As a QA engineer, I do not believe that it is like interacting with the database is about being convenient and changing the state of an app, right? It's about verifying that the database is working as expected. You know, is there a benefit in being able to change the database for an app? Sure, of course. But if that's your what you're using to sell, why you need access to it, it's not going to work, right? You need to implement testing strategies for the database. Okay. Implementing testing strategies for the database that will say, okay, why do you need, so the developer asks, why do you need access to the database? Okay. Well, I need to verify the schema. I need to verify that if I am entering text that is, if the limit of the text says that it shouldn't take more than 50 characters, I need to make sure if I send 51 characters that I get an error. If I send 50 characters that it accepts it. Right? I need to do boundary testing. I need to make sure that if a field says that if a column is supposed to take integers, I need to make sure that if I send text to it that it's going to give me an error, I need to validate the database. Right? I need to do load testing on the database to make sure it can handle the load. You know? Like I need to actually test the database during that implementation phase. Like that's what gives you access to the database. You need to like something that I notice with engineers is that we are open for change, but we just don't like changing stuff just to change stuff, right? We need the why behind it. And even if it's not a problem, it could be it could totally be not an issue to make a change, but it's hard for us to accept it if we don't know the reason why it's being suggested, right? So just have a strong argument on why do you need access to it. I've seen like a lot of people in QA use they're using like joins, left joins, right joins. I know Stephanie, she is practically a SQL expert at this point, right? Being having to do queries and stuff like that, knowing about the primary key, and talking about databases for a second. An amazing content creator called Keep It Techie. He just released a 2-hour MySQL, 2-hour MySQL um, tutorial, right? And I was checking it out today. I got like halfway through it so far, and it is very, very good, right? So I would suggest like wherever you are, whether you want to be a database administrator, whether you're a QA engineer, go through that Keep It Techie tutorial so that you can so what I would do is use Docker, get some experience with Docker to install MySQL, and then log into that Docker instance of MySQL and go through the Keep It Techie MySQL tutorial, right? But anyways, QA engineers do use MySQL, or they use databases. They do database testing. You don't come at it as, oh, I want access to the database so I can make it convenient for my life. Nope, it's not about your convenience. It is about testing, and come with a good plan to what are you going to do to test the database, right? Making sure that if I go to the website that and I enter a new user, it's going to hit the API, and the API is going to put it into the database. And then when I will go to retrieve that user, the API is going to take it from that database, and what is going to return on the site, right? So that is the way that the QA testers and engineers need access to the database to verify that everything is working smoothly. It's like an integration test, component testing, integration testing, all of that stuff, end-to-end testing, right? I go to the website, I do some action on there that's going to trigger the API, and the API is going to trigger the database. I go into the database to make sure that everything's on up and up. And then also like the schema testing, all of that stuff, load testing, that is the approach, right? If you come at it with, oh, it's just to make my life easier, then I would shut you down too. All right. So there we go with that.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos. Enigmatic Joker.